Well, hello and welcome to today's video. Let's talk about adverse driving conditions for just a minute or two. Adverse driving conditions are applicable when the motor carrier and the driver could have normally completed a trip legally and in compliance with all hours of service regulations had they not encountered unknown adverse driving conditions. A lot of confusion about that. A lot of people think that if they run into a snowstorm or if they run into any kind of other, typical weather events, that they could just claim adverse driving conditions and cover it that way, and that is not true. If the way it works out really in reality is if you knew or could have known, should have known prior to departing on the trip, that is not going to save you, the adverse driving conditions in the regs. It's only applicable if you run into something that is extremely unusual and it was not forecast, and you and your motor carrier, you as a driver and the motor carrier itself, had no way of reasonably knowing that such a thing would occur. This does happen in certain parts of the country, and it can happen anywhere from time to time when there's a surprise storm or something that causes all kind of devastation, some kind of surprise flooding or something that just wasn't expected. Something that shuts down major roadways and that causes serious traffic delays and that really nobody saw coming. In that case, you can use that. You just need to flag it, put it in the remarks, and note, what happened and what caused you to run over your normal drive time, and explain it that way. And also always remember too, it's going to come down to the judgment of the enforcement personnel looking at this stuff to determine whether your excuse is an acceptable one or not. It's not something that's cut and dried and it's completely clear. But what is clear is that there are a lot of drivers, a lot of owner operators, a lot of motor carriers who flat out do not understand adverse driving conditions, and they constantly try to use that during things that are absolutely not going to be allowed. So, if you're tooling down the highway on the way to your delivery and you run into a heavy rainstorm and it's forecast and it's heavy rainstorms, in the area, that's not going to cut it. Same thing with snow in the wintertime. You're going through the mountains in the wintertime and it's known that you're going to hit those kind of conditions. Typically forecast, it happens every year, is to be expected that adverse driving conditions is not going to help you in that case in most situations. Now, a lot of other people will say, well, we've used that and we've never had a problem with it. And that's one of those things, like people claiming anything about regulations or risk management, it doesn't mean squat. All it means is that you haven't been caught yet and held accountable for it. So don't make the mistake of assuming that you can just whip out that, adverse driving conditions whenever you want to and use that to get a little further down the road. Because if you try that, eventually it's going to catch up to you, and there can be some serious penalties associated with that. Not just from a regulatory standpoint, but again, a lot of folks don't take these things into consideration, but when you're looking at risk management overall, if something happens and there's a serious accident and somebody gets hurt or worse, everything is going to be looked at, that the driver has done, that the motor carrier has done leading up to that event. And even if the actual accident itself was caused by another driver in a car or another truck or whatever, it doesn't matter. Even if it was very clear that it was actually caused by the other person, if you as a driver, as an owner operator, are in the wrong place, meaning someplace that you don't legally have the hours to be in accordance with the regulations, they're going to come after you. And they're going to come after you hard because they're after the insurance money. Above and beyond all the other excuses that people talk about, it's all about the money, in my opinion. And you can figure that out for yourself. Flip over the back of almost any phone book, and yes, they still exist. Hard copy phone books are still around, and on the back of them, half the time there's a personal injury attorney's ad in listing tractor trailer accidents, among other things. So just understand that it's much more serious than just whether DOT wants to fine you or not. It can open the door and open your company and your business and you up to all kinds of additional liabilities if you don't know and understand this stuff fully. So use it when you can legally use it. Don't try it when you can't legally use it. And I know sometimes even still, it's not always easy to tell, but hope that helps you a little bit. Look it up, Section 395, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, and also be sure to look at the interpretations and the different guidelines that people have put out, that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has put out, and on all the regulations. So look at the whole thing. You can look up the most current copy of that on the FMCSA site. You can also go to J.J. Keller or a couple other vendors, but Keller's one I usually use. And you can get yourself a management edition of the regulations. I like the spiral bound. It's just easier to work with and stays open to the page I'm looking at, that kind of thing. But make sure you get a current copy. If you're gonna use the hard copy ones, you want to get an updated one about every 3 months. And you can always back that up by making sure you have the most current stuff by still looking anything up that's really key or important to you on the FMCSA site on top of using the paper copy. So that's just a little tip of the iceberg on adverse conditions, weather conditions, and we'll be talking more about hours of service regulations and more about all aspects of the regulations in upcoming videos. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.